The Unseen Scandal of Duchess Leora. Chapter 3. The first time the Duchess came across the Reverend alone was almost a week after the sermon, and it was in the palace gardens. She often wandered through the garden's meandering paths, seeking relief among the blooming flowers and their vibrant colors. It reminded her that even if her world had turned gray, there was still some color and light in the world for someone, somewhere at least. On that faithful day, she was taking one such walk, except this time she was with a vision where the color had slowly started becoming enticing. As the sunlight bathed the garden in a warm nuzzle, she came upon Reverend Percy. He was engrossed in caring for a bed of roses, his fingers delicately tending to each petal. The Duchess approached him quietly, her face carefully neutral, and her heart full of gratitude for the comfort he had indirectly provided her during her worst moments. Sensing her presence, the Reverend looked up at her. "Good day, Your Grace," the Reverend greeted her with a warm yet tentative smile, as if unsure where he stood with her now, never once ceasing his ministrations to the blossoms. The Duchess returned the greeting with a nod, her eyes softening and reflecting a newfound sense of hope. "Good day, Reverend Percy." He immediately relaxed at her answer, her tentative smile turning sure and a tad happy. There must have been something in what she said, or how she said it, or maybe how she stood or looked at him, or maybe it was the fact that she had approached him first, without any initiative from him this time, and she wasn't outright ignoring him or shutting him out. He knew then and there that the outer layer of frost had thawed over. They stayed amidst the fragrant roses, their shared understanding evident in their exchanged glances. The Duchess knew that her gratitude had been conveyed to the Reverend already. Reverend Percy, without a word, continued his gentle care of the roses, a silent acknowledgement of the space he was giving her, to open up at her own pace. The Duchess knew that she did not need to speak the words of her pain and suffering all at once. Instead, she could slowly, gently, and gradually reveal her struggles, just as the bird had found companionship and freedom in the Reverend's sermon. In the midst of the blooming roses and the hushed garden, the Duchess felt a new sense of hope. Reverend Percy's sermons had given her a firm purpose to heal, and she was determined to use it. She had found a confidant, a friend, a light in her darkened life, and she was ready to start her journey toward healing, one step at a time. And she did. She took to that companionship like a fish to water or a bird to air. Soon thereafter, they progressed from mere acquaintances to companions and then bloomed into an honest-to-God friendship. It was as if she was a whole new person after that. That sermon and their interactions after that seemed to have opened up her heart, as well as her true inner self that she had hidden within herself for so long. She felt like a traveler in the desert that had been parched for so long, and only just now had found an oasis to quench that. She was parched of companionship, a deep heart that she could confide in, a solid shoulder that she could cry on, a sincere smile that she could laugh along with, and everything in between. And now that she had found that in the Reverend, it was as if she had bloomed anew. She suddenly remembered the young girl of her past who was happy and cheeky, who wanted to live her life to the fullest, to fly high and above and beyond, who used to be so in love and wanted to be loved back just as much. Talking to Reverend Percy made her realize that her romantic soul hadn't died somewhere in her plight. It had just gone dormant in the face of the pain and anguish she had suffered throughout the years. The Reverend also made her realize that no one is above redemption and everyone deserves a second chance, even if it is her husband, and she was willing to do that. Now, if only her husband would reciprocate that. But she had to try first to know the result, didn't she? So she soldiered up and set her heart to give her relationship another try, no matter the consequences. As soon as she was ready to try, she had to talk to the Reverend first. She was so excited for this new phase in life, and she wanted the Reverend to be the first one to know. Her companion, her confidant, and her savior. He was the one who gave her hope and courage, so she felt it only right for him to be the first one to see the fruit of his effort. The Duchess rushed to the chapel and found him outside, in the gardens, talking to a couple of men who seemed like some aristocrats. She only then realized that there were a lot of aristocrats and members of the royals in the church that day. There must have been discussions or preparations going on about some upcoming official event. It had to be because even if some royals would visit the church every now and then, there were never any official visits at this huge of a level in routine. So, she patiently waited for them to leave, and then launched into a long, excited details about her decision and her plans. He did nothing but listen to her calmly and stare at her fondly as she went on and on with her ramblings. They were so busy in their own happy bubble that they failed to notice the surrounding eyes glaring at them with so much anger and venom that it was a wonder that they hadn't spontaneously combusted in flames. Only if looks could kill, though. Fortunately, they couldn't. Otherwise, they would have been 6 feet under already. But still, as luck would have it, the devil tends to follow you home. Or at least it did in Duchess Leora's case. The devil followed her home. Unaware and still high on her happy horse, the Duchess went back home and promptly started the preparations for her big surprise. The first thing she did was to order all the servants to collect and bring her as many flowers as they possibly could, and then went on to raid her wardrobe for the best and the sultriest dress it had to offer. She decided on a ruby red dress that she thought fit the moment perfectly. It accentuated all her right features, making her look elegant and sensual at the same time. It was also a dress that she used to wear in the earlier days of her marriage, a gift from the Duke himself. She was hoping that a reminder from their earlier, much happier days would set the tone of the night nicely. She took a long, steamy bath filled with so many rose petals that she was drenched in their essence, even after she was dressed for the night. So that was one mission accomplished. She had ordered the servants to cover the staircase, the corridor, and the path to the bedroom in flowers. She herself had decorated the bedroom with all kinds of flowers. The candles and the candelabras were ignited throughout the castle and the bedroom. All in all, it all looked like a celebration fit for the first night of a newly married couple. The Duchess felt nothing less than that. She was nervously but excitedly waiting for him, pacing the bedroom, when the Duke finally entered. She turned to him, a little bit shy and a little bit coy, and with a smile she started, "My lord, I have be..." She couldn't even finish her first sentence when a hand met her cheek in such a strong slap. She actually fell to the ground on impact. He roared with every strength in his voice, "You ill-behaved woman! How dare you prance around such manner, offering yourself up to whoever looks at you twice," grabbing her by her hair and pulling her up with so much force that she was sure half her hair had been pulled out of her scalp. She would have worried about that in any other circumstances, but the thought was thrown out of her mind as soon as the Duke threw her on the bed with all his might. The bed shook at the impact, and so did she. Realistically, she could tell that there was some cursing, some screaming, a lot of shouting and rustling as the Duke proceeded to tear off his own clothes and remove his belt. But she couldn't hear all that. The only thing she could hear was a loud ringing noise, partly as an aftermath of the impact of the slap and the hair pulling and the throwing around she had just experienced. But mostly, she had gone just numb with shock and disbelief. She was confused, still wondering just what the hell had happened. One moment she was happy and excited, saying a greeting to her husband, and the next, she had met with an animal of a man who had turned into such a beast that she couldn't distinguish her husband from in there, even if she tried. The monster ripping her skirt and clawing at her legs was not her husband in any way. "Is that what you are looking for? Is this what you wanted, you courtesan? Well, I'll give you just that. Do you go offering yourself up to every man in town like this? Huh? Answer me." He continued shouting filth at her, just as he continued his assault on her. She wanted to answer him. By God, she did. But what would she answer him? A no? Would he accept that? Would he believe that? Would he stop what he was doing after hearing that? Would that turn back time to before, when she was still hopeful? Would that patch her up, now that she was so utterly broken? She thought not. So she said nothing. She said nothing as slaps and fists and kicks and belts rained on her. She said nothing as her ruby-red camisole and her satin-white bedspread slowly turned the same color, the color of blood. Her blood. She felt so exhausted after such a long fight with her fate, with the world, and with herself that she could not fight anymore. She couldn't even scream. She couldn't even cry. She did feel some stray tears of pain and agony escaping her eyes silently. She let them. Those were going to be the last tears she would ever shed for this man. She promised herself.